So I didn't have an episode last week. I took last week off. Life just sort of happened. It was nothing in particular. It was just a bunch of little things. And then I just realized I'm just not organized enough to put on episodes. So today's episode might be a little longer. A lot of people in the past have told me that the 20, 30 minute mark is actually the sweet spot for a news podcast because they get a bunch of news stories. It's the length of their commute, their train ride, or their drive into work or something. So it seems like a lot of people listen to this stuff on the train. This one's going to be longer because it's got 8 stories. I usually cap out around 6. Just a restaurant closed for 2 days after 33 customers became ill due to food poisoning. So that's pretty bad. 5 of the 7 employees tested positive for norovirus. Now, I've heard norovirus. I thought it was a flu. So maybe it is a flu and they got their flu particles all over the food and that made all the people sick. But I feel like they wouldn't call it food poisoning then. So maybe it's norovirus and food poisoning like salmonella or ill-prepared food or something. Clearly, there's a cleanliness issue here. That I think maybe is the underscore of either point, like whether it was norovirus or food poisoning, this is a dirty, dirty place and you do not want to eat there. That would be my feeling. If I've heard that a restaurant had 33 people get sick, I might not go there to eat, if I'm just being really honest. So they shut down for 3 days and the government's like, scrub your stuff. Clean everything, get these like dirty employees out and let them get better. And then you can reopen. They reopened 3 days later. 23 people get sick from food poisoning immediately. 11 had norovirus. So this is one of those things where I was like, I meant to look up what norovirus is. Clearly it's something that's spread through touch. The staff who were sick before, either they got better and passed it on to other staff or just they didn't get better and came back and kept working. I would actually put money on, this is not in the story, I would put money on the people who had the norovirus were the ones actually cleaning. So they would clean something, touch it immediately afterwards, and there you have your new blossom of norovirus. So when they reopened the restaurant, it was just there germinating, waiting to go. And oh my God, please be careful when you go out to eat. Births in Japan. The birth rate is a constant news story because it's a thing that needs to be fixed that they don't know how to fix. And there's now been some really weird stuff that I've experienced in my own personal life, but we'll get the story out first. Births in 2024, 729,880. That is down 37,643 from 2023. So that's a 5% drop in 1 year. That's really bad. We're looking at less than 700,000 babies in 2025 if this trend continues. So there might be something that happens. Maybe I get out and they're in the world and I have, I was in a pharmacy and they had a drink for men to become vigorous called Diamond Banana. And I really wanted to buy it. Just to see primarily what it tastes like. I wasn't planning on having any sexual escapades that day. So I was a little torn because A, it was stupid expensive. It was like 3,000 yen, which is like, $25, $30. B, I'm assuming it's just a placebo, but if it works, would I just be turgid for the entire day with no release schedule? That's maybe the issue I was running into. I did look at the ingredients list. It had supon, which is soft shelled turtle. It had cobra extract. And I don't know if that's the venom or the blood of the cobra. It had scorpion. It had skeleton. So I'm assuming seal bones ground up and put in it, or maybe some shark or something like that. And I was like, I bet those are all like traditional Chinese remedies for the male issue at hand. But I bet it's also a placebo. So my thinking, what these actually drinks are. So I actually think Ninja News Japan might be expanding its product line into a drink. And you put in a whole bunch of just stuff that sounds manly. Like when you say it has cobra venom in it or cobra extract or shark fin muscle bone, you're like, oh man, that's manly. And you put that in my body and I get more manly as a result. This is a placebo. But you want the placebo to have like an indicator at work. So I was actually betting like these things have a ton of caffeine or a ton of nicotine. So you drink it and then 10 minutes later, you're like, ooh, I feel good. I feel ready to go. And then you're like, that drink is working. It is diamonding my banana. And now I am Diamond Banana. And then that placebo effect is exasperated by that. So it's just like increased tenfold because you do feel something and you're like, this is working. Now mentally, I think it is working, therefore it works. And I think that might be the secret to these energy drinks. And I have read a placebo study and it said the more expensive the painkiller, the better it works. But it doesn't, like, it could have the exact same stuff in it. It could just be like 600 milligrams of acetaminophen. Cost, like the no-name brand is going to be like 1,000 yen, let's say that. And then the acetaminophen bufferin DX extra fast, powerful, that's 2,000 yen. It works twice as fast. The exact same contents, doesn't matter because your brain's like, if it costs more money, then it must be more effective. And it does work that way because that's how placebos work. And people talk about like, oh, it's just a placebo effect. I'm like, if it works, like if I feel less pain faster, I'm willing to pay the extra money. Like, I don't care if it's real or placebo. If Diamond Banana works because it's all in my head, because maybe that's it. Maybe the problem I'm having is in my head, like when Spider-Man couldn't shoot his webs. Maybe I just need to believe, and this is the catalyst that makes me believe. Now, it would be expensive to drink that on a regular basis, but I'm at an age where that's not a problem anymore. I am totally off the baby train, which is what I should be on. Ishiba, the current prime minister, he made comments. That was a wicked tangent. His comments was, there are less opportunities for women to meet and get married, which I actually agree with. This is one of the few times I've agreed with prime ministers on the baby issue, because usually they're saying, can we find a government mandated solution to the baby issue? And the answer is no, because you can't make people do this stuff. You need them to want to do it. The way they want to do it is if they have free time to meet and fall in love and form a relationship, they need to have enough money to live. Those are the two fundamentals for people making babies. I'm not going to get into any of the other subtleties. You need to have enough money to survive. You need to have enough time to actually, make and take care of a baby. So you need a massive shift in just the work culture in Japan. He then went on to say the government shouldn't interfere with people's values, which again, I agree with. The government shouldn't be telling people how to live their lives. So that's a good attitude. But then he said, can the government create opportunities to meet? And I actually think, that's not a terrible thing. They've had like government sponsored dating parties. I don't know how successful they were. They never sounded to be particularly successful. They had one where they were like ladies from the city could come meet like basically farmers. That might be a good thing. I don't know how successful that was. I don't know how attractive it is going from Tokyo, living in the countryside. But what he's basically suggesting we bring back omiai. Now, when you say arranged marriage, you think like Game of Thrones. I'm going to take my daughter and then I will choose a guy and they'll get married and they'll have no say in it. Omiya is not quite the same. It's arranged marriage, but through like a marriage broker. So like, let's say I want to get married. I go to this person. They have like a catalog and we go through the catalog and we have attributes and we have a discussion. Then we meet and then we decide if we like each other. Now we both know we're looking for marriage. That's the whole point of the Omiya system. So at least that's all on the table. I actually know a couple of people I've met whose parents met through Omiai, and they actually say they're really happy and this was a really good way to meet. So there's clearly, cultural elements or opinions or things like that will come into it, but it does seem that overall a good Omiai is very good. I'm assuming, again, we don't have stats on it. But Ishiba thinks this might be the one way to step forward is like, look, people aren't meeting. Here's an organized way to get people to meet. Maybe we should be encouraging that as opposed to Tinder, which I think maybe people's attitudes on Tinder might be different. The marriage rate is lower among temporary workers. So either we need to raise rates for those workers or just let them quit their jobs. Make a situation where someone gets paid enough that they can quit their jobs. But in a slight amount of good news, this is the second year in a row that marriages have gone up. It's gone 2.2% up since last year. That is attributed primarily to COVID. So like people weren't out and meeting and being able to do stuff. So they weren't hanging out. They weren't getting married, or they were like, let's defer our marriage until, after the pandemic is kind of finished. We had a new group of people join our company. And one of them actually brought up the breeding visa. Now, we were in a professional environment, so they didn't say that. Yeah, they went like, yeah, and now they got those visas for young single people. And I was like, oh, that's not a thing. So this is internet information. It's really interesting because the idea that they're going to bring in young people to hook up and breed and make babies, and then I assume since they're not really like staying, they would just be abandoning those children. So they become like state-sponsored children or something. Like that plan doesn't sound very thought out. It's also the exact opposite of what Japanese people would want. Japanese people don't want a ton of foreigners coming over and making foreign babies, because they will always hold on to that core idea that these are not pure, true Japanese babies. Like, I, as a foreign person, have talked to a class of students, and they've been like, oh yeah, we don't want that. And I was like, you realize you're saying to me, a foreigner who's come to Japan and had 2 kids in Japan, that this is not the solution you want. Like, that is not the way it should go. But they're thinking of just Japan not being Japan anymore, which is not really the way countries work, but you're also not going to change anybody's mind. That said, in April 2023, an oral abortion pill was approved in Japan. Now, this is very new. And you can think 2025, they're now just getting Plan B, which is basically what this is. This is the difference now. They actually had it before, but now it's over the counter. You don't need to go to I guess would need a prescription or a pharmacist or something. This was just talking about, it's been introduced, it's easier to get, and now you can use it. Japan, when I arrived in 2001, had essentially this abortion cabal. And it's a very weird thing to think about, but there was an abortion industry, and they charged huge amounts of money for abortions. So they didn't want safer, faster things brought in, because they would lose all the money. So these abortion doctors were telling the government that abortion pills were not safe, so that they wouldn't come in and cut into their profits. Then it was, you can get the abortion pill, but you have to go visit the doctor so he gets his cut. Then it was kind of okay, because then the doctor was still making some money off this. Now this is taking it a notch. It's making it more accessible. So I'm assuming you just have to go to the pharmacy and talk to a pharmacist. But last year it was used 1,440 times, as opposed to the 120,000 abortions that were performed in Japan last year. It's good up to 9 weeks, and it's safer than surgeries. This is one of the big problems is if you have multiple surgeries, it might actually impact your ability to have a baby down the line, whereas this is a much safer alternative. Last year, abortions rose for the first time in 22 years. I don't know what that says about the culture or country or anything. You'll have to interpret that information your own way. A Japanese company is selling optical lattice clocks. They are, what are they? That's actually the interesting. I only found this story interesting because I really like watches and stuff. And I found that all the young people who come to Japan now, they don't have watches. And it makes perfect sense. You have a phone, the phone tells you the time, it's your alarm. It does everything you need it to do. Why would you buy a watch? Watches now would just be a fashion accessory. But I grew up thinking watches were cool, so I like watches. You can actually see one on my desk just over there. I found it interesting that they're making this incredibly expensive, accurate clock. This will be accurate. It will lose less than 1 second over 10 billion years, which actually my immediate thought was like, how long do the parts last? Like, the parts aren't going to last 10 billion years. So I don't think that's true. I think something in the machine is going to give after the first million years, and then it's going to lose accuracy in time. I guess you would be able to maintain it or something. It looks like a mini fridge, and it is 109 centimeters tall. Their plan is to sell 10 units over 3 years at 500 million yen a unit. So they want to make $3.3 million off this. And it's like, what is the purpose of a mini fridge that tells time to that level of accuracy? Well, this is designed for monitoring the movement of the Earth's crust in like volcanic activity. So we're talking like, you set up this clock somewhere. I guess you check where your tectonic plate is, and then you can see how far it shifts over a certain amount of time, and then you can extrapolate where that tectonic plate is actually going. It seems like this is measuring time on a cosmic scale kind of thing. Like, we're not going to be around to see the results of these experiments or whatever, but they are, or someone else is, whoever inherits the clock that costs 5 million yen. I won't be getting one because I actually do prefer just a wristwatch. Japan has a lot of like collectible culture. My first experience of this was my son, when he was little, wanted to go to like all the stations on a certain route. And then you would get off on the station, you had a piece of paper, like a little booklet, and then you could get a stamp at that station and you could prove you had done the whole route. And if you did the whole route, you got a special stamp at the end. This is not an uncommon thing. Manhole covers in Japan in certain cities are quite artistic. So like I remember they've done some anime ones and they got a lot of attention. They've done some like ones for the city or the style. So they have a lot of stylized manhole covers. These people would go and take pictures of, no problem. These got so popular that they started making trading cards with pictures of the manhole cover, or maybe just the manhole cover's art on them. And then you can basically get them from different municipalities. So you would go to a town and I guess go to the city hall and say, I would like a manhole cover card, please. I don't know. The story that I was reading didn't tell you how to get them. That actually was a bit I was very interested about. But you're going to have to go to the town, find the place, get the card. The card is free. But because it's a collectible, there are a limited amount of different cards, or maybe some are harder to get. The government's saying we want to promote local attractions and awareness of sewer infrastructure. And I was like, okay, the first part I get, like we want to like, oh, this is where this One Piece cartoon where the artist was born, or this is where it's based or something like that. That makes perfect sense. But are you really raising awareness of sewer infrastructure? I think they just care about the cards and the pretty pictures and stuff of the castle and whatnot. I don't think people are looking at the card going, man, the intricate maze that sits beneath me when I poop. That is a thing of wonder that I should appreciate more often. Although I just did it now. So I guess it did kind of work. It's supposed to be one per person. So like I show up at the city hall downtown, let's say in my town, and I say, can I have the sewer card? And they're like, hey, yeah, thanks, buddy. Here's your sewer card. Now, I'm not supposed to be able to get another one.
I would collect them all, to be honest.
I wouldn't. I just wouldn't be willing to put the effort in. That's really the issue. It's not that I'm opposed to collecting stuff. I just have no interest in going to a place to get them. I bet if I went with you, like if we went together, if I went with friends, I would enjoy it. But nah, just by myself, no. I've never been that into collecting, I guess. But they found that some people are disguising themselves so they can get multiple copies of a single card and then sell them online. So then I go outside into my car, take off my hat, shave my beard, go back in. Hey, I'm a new guy. Can I have the card? I get another card. And then I put on a different jacket, a wig or something like that. And I come in, I try to get multiple cards that way. We do, of course, then have how much these cards are worth online. The Osaka Castle manhole cover card is worth 6,100 yen. There is a 10 card set for Mount Fuji. So I would bet you have to go around Mount Fuji, go to different places. You can collect 10 cards. That set of 10 cards is 88,000 yen online. The Okazaki Castle is selling for 100,000 yen. That's like $700 with the current exchange as it is right now. For a single card with Okazaki Castle. So they didn't explain why the Okazaki Castles card is so much rarer or so much more expensive than anything else. Well, Jade's point is actually perfectly accurate. This is robbery. This is scandalous because these are supposed to be free for people who put in the effort. They just don't want to have like people sit at home and just order them off the internet and get them, because then you didn't go to the place. You didn't do the thing. You didn't see the town that you're supposed to be promoting. This is scalping, and scalping's become a real issue. Everything that is collectible is getting scalped, and then these now municipal governments are like, what do we do about it? Well, the excessive reselling is going to end the campaign. So the governments are now so angry that they're selling this stuff online. I don't know if they're angry that they're selling it online or they're selling it online and they're not getting a cut of the action. But anyways, I actually think this is a little altruistic. They're like saying, oh, we're trying to give this out for free, and then people are taking them, making a profit. That's not really in the right spirit of it. We're going to shut down the campaigns. But then I thought, what's actually going to happen is that's going to increase the value, because now you can't get them anymore. So if you have that Okazaki Castle card that is worth 100,000 yen, when they end the campaigns altogether, I bet that doubles or triples in price. And now I might go scalp some stuff. There's been a lot of streamer stories lately. The streamer story that actually I was a little aware of, it doesn't really apply to Japan anymore, is that Johnny Somali is on trial in Korea. So he came to Japan, did a lot of dumb stuff here. He got arrested, held him for like a month or something. Then they let him go. And I think basically he's just not allowed back in the country. His visa's been marked, or his passport has been marked. Other people, and then he went to Korea, he went to Israel, and then he went to Korea, and now he's caused so much trouble in Korea that they're actually talking about prison time. So he's been charged and found guilty on 2 or 3 charges. They're doing 1 or 2 more, but these are all cumulative. So now he's essentially a repeat offender and they're looking for real jail time. I'm very interested in how that plays out. It just unfortunately does not fit into the format of Ninja News Japan and what we do here. But there are other streamers, and other streamers have been like, hey, Johnny Somali built up an audience by being an asshole. I can be an asshole. I might even be a really good asshole. There's a guy, Ice Poseidon, an Action Man. They have been going around Japan. They're not doing the same degree of offensive stuff they are. Like there was one where they were purposely smoking cigarettes on a non-smoking car. They are right now going around some islands, so they're going on the ferry, and they were denied entry to the ferry. Now, their sort of way of doing stuff is they just, almost like Trump, they just immediately start denying any of the stuff that you've actually seen them do because they're streaming everything. So they'll like go somewhere, behave badly, get called out for it and go, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. And as if that was some sort of convincing argument. This Coast Guard guy wasn't having it. See, he spoke English, and that's already the first one. So they're going to get on a second ferry. So they've already caused problems on the first ferry probably, and filmed it and streamed it live. And the Coast Guard guy comes out and he says, unfortunately, even though you've already bought this ferry ticket, you cannot get on the ferry today because the ferry owner has decided and refused. So that's it. This is like the guy who owns the ferry, he doesn't want you on his boat. So you're not getting on his boat. They turn around and go, why? Like as if this is an unreasonable thing. He says, because they acknowledge you have already done a lot of troublesome activities in Japan. So basically, we've seen the way you're behaving in Japan. We've seen the stuff you're doing. We don't want that nonsense on our boat, so you're not allowed on our boat. The group then denies they've done anything wrong. So of course, even though they've live streamed it, and these guys obviously have picked up on the live stream somehow, like maybe someone has said, hey, these guys are traveling on your ferries. Maybe check this internet stuff out, the record of them behaving like dickheads online. They've seen it because the guy said, like, we've seen that you've done this. We don't want any part of it. The Coast Guard, so they say, oh, we haven't done anything. He says, many people have watched. So he's like, it's not like you're being convincing by saying we didn't do it. You've broadcast it on the internet. So people have seen you do it. So the denial means nothing. Then one of them goes, he got lied to. It's fake. Man, Trump with this whole fake news thing, he's really infected the language. I think I've never heard the word fake as much as I do now. And then says, wouldn't we be in jail if we did something wrong? Now, there's doing something wrong and then there's committing a crime. Now, they might brush up against each other, but there's not always the same thing. You're not going to get arrested and put in jail for smoking in a non-smoking car. You're going to get told not to do it. Maybe you'll get kicked off the ferry or the train or whatever. But the Coast Guard dude's not buying it and he just doesn't let them board. He's not having the argument. And I think that's always the thing, is the streamers want you to have the argument so they can use their sort of circular logic to get you stuck in a loop where hopefully they'll just be like, eventually he'll give up. Where this guy's just like, look, I said no. I don't care what you have to say. I've seen you do it. The answer is no. You're done. The interpreter then tries to talk to them and get them to let him on board. Because again, this interpreter, he might not be one of the nuisance streamers, which is how they're referred to in Japanese, but he is getting paid by them. So he wants them to keep going and making their content so he can keep getting paid. He tries to talk to the Coast Guard guy in Japanese, and then he comes back and he says, they said because of things on YouTube and whatnot, we're not going to win this battle. So they're like, because we've seen what you're doing, because we've seen clips of how you're behaving in Japan, you're not allowed on our ferry and you're not going to win because it's, again, the management company can decide to refuse to serve you. I think what we're seeing now is a shift in the culture in Japan towards these nuisance. Johnny Somali's the one who set it off. Like there were always people who were doing dick moves. I don't know, one of the Pauls, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, he went to that forest and found the dead body and thought it was a really good idea to stand next to it and film and make like lighthearted jokes and stuff. He was just being a dick. Johnny Somali, I'm actually betting, saw that and saw like, I can do that, and took it to the next level. These guys aren't behaving that badly, but they are trying to hit that sort of peak of just getting in as much trouble as they can without getting arrested, which actually might be where his argument came from. Like, if we were really doing a bad thing, we would have been arrested by now, right? When that's not actually the case. Like, you can misbehave and not get arrested. So they're trying to push the borders, but then Japan as a culture is now just being like, no, we don't want this in our country. We don't want this associated with us. We don't want people to come here and do this thing. And I think that might be the next step is either just people start acting back, like you behave badly, and then people, the citizenry at large, just start like pushing back. And then like this Coast Guard guy is just like, nah, you're not allowed to travel with us anymore, and it'll make harder for them to move around. Or this being Japan, I actually bet they legislate it. I bet they do like a nuisance live streaming act of some sort where it now becomes illegal to stream with showing other people's faces in the background. It's going to be something surreptitious. It's not going to be like you're not allowed to live stream. It's like you're not allowed to live stream and you have to get permission from everyone to actually do it.
Japan needs to just do what Korea did to Somali.
I agree. I actually wish they'd put him in prison. I wish he had gotten actual jail time.
Just beat their ass whenever you see them. Open season.
Oh, you're talking about the people in Japan. There was that like the Korean version of the Navy SEAL who like went up and decked him, and then they started calling. The best part was they started calling the Korean internet netizens started calling Johnny Somali a golden golem, which is like someone, you kill that enemy in a game and it drops a lot of loot, because they were like, if you beat up Johnny Somali, all these people are going to donate money to you. So that guy got arrested for punching Johnny Somali in the face. The next day, like people on the internet put him up in a like 5-star hotel and paid for all his food and stuff. So I think the world is pushing back. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. These guys have all pulled it down a little bit, because I think they don't want to lose access to Japan. Japan is one of these like, for nerdy people, Japan is one of those like dream destinations. And they know if they can come back to Japan and film stuff here, it's always going to get an audience. Whereas if they get kicked out of the country and they can't come back in, they're going to lose that sort of avenue. A Japanese couple visited the Great Wall of China, which is a very nice thing to do. Go to China, visit the Great Wall. I actually would like to go there. I haven't been there yet. So it's something I would actually like to do. They decided the best memory of this situation would be for the man to pull down his pants and his female companion to take a picture of his buttocks, generally referred to as the moon.
Man, Japan could just pull the, we don't need to tell you why we arrested you for a
Well, they
while
held
card.
Johnny Somali for the 20 whatever days. And you're not, Japan's rule is that you can hold someone for 24 days before they're charged. So basically, I don't know if weekends count. So that might just be a full month. And they did that to him. So they held him. Korea's got a very interesting thing where he's not allowed to leave the country, but he's also not allowed to work. So he has to like basically burn through any savings he has and then become poor as the trials drag on and on and on. So they're actually just like burning his money in a weird way as he has to just sit in the country. Because I read multiple stories, some said record the picture, some said take a picture, some said video. So I'm not sure if they did a video of the guy's butt or if they just took a picture of the guy's butt. And I never saw a picture, so I don't know how good this guy's butt is. So maybe he has a great butt. Maybe it was worth like the same level as the Great Wall of China. Like if you're going to go to the Great Wall of China, you're going to take a picture and you'd be like, my man's butt is as good as the Great Wall of China. I think both of them in the same picture, chef's kiss. I think that's what it should be. Unfortunately, there was a cop nearby and they were immediately arrested for public indecency and disturbing the peace. They were held for 2 weeks. This actually shows like I do, again, all my information comes from media. So I have very significant biases that are incorrect because like my belief in the violence in America comes from American media. My understanding of America as a country comes from media. So they talk about violence and I know the reality is media makes it seem like violence is going up where the reality is violence is going down. We just had some people I talked to, some Americans I talked to, I've just met, and they were saying where they're from, and one's from Alabama. And I was like, the only thing I know about Alabama as a state is racism because all my information about Alabama comes from movies. And the only time someone makes a movie about Alabama is when they want to tell a racist story. Now I'm betting it's not as racist as I think it is. I bet there's still a lot of racism there. Otherwise they wouldn't be making those movies. But you can see like there's a fine balance between reality and opinion. And I have to be aware of my biases. My bias about China in this instance would be they're just going to give you the maximum sentence. So in this case, they didn't. They're like, okay, you're a young couple, you're being dumb, you mooned on the Great Wall of China. They held them for 2 weeks and like probably pressured them a lot, but they didn't end up charging when they're like, please go back to Japan. And they did. They claimed they were just doing it as a prank. And I do tend to believe that. I think if you were going to do like an anti-Chinese protest or a sentiment or something like that, you wouldn't just moon on the Great Wall of China. That seems like a very in the moment thought. It doesn't seem like they sat down or like, let's really teach China a lesson and show my butt on the Great Wall of China. So I actually believe this because, yeah, it doesn't seem like a political statement. Of course, Chinese citizens' anger towards Japan and that sort of resentment that goes back and forth, they were like, they should come back and have to apologize publicly. They should be arrested. They should fine. I mean, it's the internet. So, of course, it went off the rails really quick about how much punishment they deserved. I think being held for 2 weeks would be scary enough that that's enough punishment. That's basically all I want to say. Mooning in the wrong place, getting held for 2 weeks and then getting released, I'm thinking that's actually more than enough. Director of a nursery school. So this is someone who has dedicated their life to taking care of children. You know, the fact that I'm doing this story last and I've changed sort of the tone of my voice means it's extra gross. But also you can tell by the flippancy of my voice that it's not, that bad. This director of the nursery school wanted to scare the children into doing what he wanted. So that's already like, not the nurturing techniques I would employ if I was a director of a nursery school. I think I'm going to say that with some confidence. If I was director of a nursery school, I don't think I would use fear as a tool to get these kids to do what I say. I would maybe, you want to have that in your pocket. I can scare the kids when I need to, but overall, the methodology should be positive reinforcement, encouragement, like, hey, let's try to work together. Let's try to be better people. The nursery school my kids went to, actually my son, I remember picking him up. It was connected to a Buddhist temple. And so they did some meditation and stuff. And they were trying to get these kids to be like, they weren't pushing them into the religion. They were like, hey, maybe sitting and calming down and thinking for a minute is good for you. So let's try that. And they tried it. They didn't force it on the kids. Like if the kids like got restless and stuff, they're like, okay, you're clearly not in the enlightened mood today. Let's just remove you. And so the other kids can give it a shot. It was cool, if I'm being really honest, because they didn't push a religious aspect on it in any real way. They talked about it, but they were never like, you need to join or you need to pay money. There were a lot of like cool things like that happened. This guy's philosophy obviously is very different. Now, my thought was, if I was, okay, let's say I've gotten to this point where I'm like, I need to scare the kids. I think my size, I'm a big 6 foot, 200 pound guy. I might use that. I might use a really loud voice, scare the kids with how angry I can get, not actually do anything, probably not even be as angry as I'm presenting, but put on a bit of a show to scare the kids. If you're going to go way off the rails, dress up and come in and scare the kids and dress like a devil or a zombie or something, really freak them out. I think that's way too much, but the psychological harm there might be minimized by the fact that it's not real and no one actually gets hurt. This guy decided, and I wish I'd organized a quiz for this week. I've been very disorganized. That's why I didn't do an episode last week. Been having a not rough time, but it's just a lot of stuff going on. He decided to scare the kid by peeing in his water bottle, filling the boy's water bottle with urine. Okay, so let's be really honest. That's not scary. It's just gross. Like the kid, if they get the water bottle, doesn't know there's pee in the water bottle. If they drink it, they go, ooh, this is disgusting. I would hope they don't think it's pee. They just like, this is gross, I'm not going to drink this. Unless you peed into the water bottle and then just looked at them and went, hey, I just peed in your water bottle. Isn't that scary? So this guy's methods of discipline and control don't seem to mesh with what his actual goal was. So I think he's not trying to scare the kids. I think he's not trying to do the thing he's saying doing. I think he's just a freak who likes to pee and stuff and be really mean to little kids. He was arrested. It's difficult. What do you arrest him for? He was arrested for destruction of property because now the bottle is considered unusable. Of course, that story got out and he lost his job. He lost a lot more than just whatever the fine would be for destruction of property. But thankfully, he will not be working in childcare anytime soon.